Welcome back to another edition of the Weekly Register podcast. I'm your host, reporter Taylor Six, and with me this week is President Emeritus Michael Benson. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Taylor.
No problem. So to get started, I always like to ask my guests, how they found themselves to be in Richmond, Madison County, wherever it is. So how did you find yourself here at Richmond and then at EKU?
Somewhat long story, very short. We were out in Utah. I was in my second presidency at the time. In kind of high desert, 6,000 feet in Cedar City, Utah, about 2.5 hours north of Las Vegas. My professional career had been spent in Utah, although I'd lived overseas for quite some time. But came back to Utah, worked first as the assistant to the president at the University of Utah, and then president of Snow College, a 2-year school in Central Utah at age 36, and really kind of cut my teeth doing that. And then applied and got the job at Southern Utah. Was there almost 7 years, and in my 7th year, got a call from the former commissioner of higher ed in Utah and said, there's a school out in Richmond. And when she said Richmond, I thought Richmond, Virginia first. Yeah. And she told me a little bit about Eastern Kentucky and came out for a visit. This was in February of 2013, so 7 years ago, and had never been here before. I'd driven through Kentucky during trips out to the East Coast, but never really spent any time here, and here we are. So that was, I was named, I will always remember, because I was named on my wife's birthday on April the 5th,
Oh, wow.
2013, and then we started officially August of that same year.
That's awesome. Big difference, Utah and Richmond?
Yeah, I mean, topographically, we have almost 2 acres that we live on with not one sprinkler head, and the grass stays green year-round. And in Utah, that's just unheard of. If you don't put water on your lawn in 24 hours, it's going to be dead.
Right.
And here, I think we take for granted just how beautiful and lush and kind of Garden of Eden-esque it is. There's beauty. I have a lot of friends here that have gone out to Utah and said, man, we went to Zion or Bryce or Arches, all these national parks that are out there, and they're spectacular. So I really appreciate the changes in topography, but I also appreciate the differences in people. I grew up in Texas, so the South is very comfortable to me.
Yeah.
And my kids are learning how to say, or they have, yes, sir, and no, ma'am. And that's important to me. And people are kind, they're genuine, they're very warm here. Not that they aren't everywhere, but I think it's even more marked in a place like Kentucky. And so we've really come to love that.
Well, good. I'm glad you found your way here to the Bluegrass. So when you did arrive here 7 years ago, what were some of the issues or priorities, I guess, that you wanted to address when you became the president of the university?
That, anytime you come to a new place, you always have to kind of take some time and listen.
Right.
The university was coming off a reprioritization, and so I had some money to work with initially, and we did a across-the-board pay increase for everybody and try to invest in some specific programs. I really wanted to get to know the school. I had done my research. I learned about the history, what the strong suits were, how we could do better in this world of uber competitive recruiting. Like Michael Crow says at Arizona State, you have to differentiate yourself from other places. So I didn't want to be everything to everybody, and I knew we couldn't afford that. So in discussions with our administrative team and with the board, we decided to focus on the 3 priorities, people, places, and programs, with a real emphasis on our greatest asset at a university or any place is people. It's your human capital. And then the place itself certainly needed a refresh, and so that was an emphasis. And the third thing was programs. What programs were we doing well? What could we do better? How could we set ourselves apart from other institutions? And how can we go head-to-head with kind of the big players in the state, with UK, U of L, even Western? And I would argue, and I hope people would see this, there may be some debate, but I think we've increased the exposure to the university. We've burnished the reputation, and it's been a collective effort. It's not just the president's office. Everybody's pitched in, but together I think we've really helped, I hope, move the needle and improved the way people think about EKU and its perception and the value of that degree that you have as a graduate.
Yes, I do cherish it, so it's a good thing to have.
Yeah.
So while serving as president of the university, one of your seemingly biggest focus, like you said, one of the most placed was campus revitalization, was kind of the term we heard here, or that I heard at least. And so why did you feel this was important for the university, and kind of how do you think it will affect the university going forward?
Well, I've had the good fortune to go as a student to two really beautiful campuses. One, the University of Oxford, which is the oldest English-speaking university in the world.
That's awesome.
And there's so much tradition and history and heritage there.
Yeah.
And the other is Notre Dame. And you go to set foot on Notre Dame's campus and you see that they're not wanting for anything in terms of an endowment and what they put into their finishes on buildings. Now, I knew we didn't have the resources that either of those places had, but still we had a campus that had been called and still is called the Campus Beautiful. The bones of it were very good. The historic structures on campus, my favorite building, the Keene Johnson building, has so much richness and spirit to it. And, you know, the ravine and the fact the Olmsted brothers had done the original master plan in the early 19-teens or 6 or 7, I think it was. And so as we looked at those plans and we thought, how can we continue to focus on our historic structures, but also maybe replace the ones that were built in the 60s and 70s that had fulfilled their useful life, and replace them with structures that were more appealing to students. A student like you, if you're a prospective student, Taylor, and you show up on campus and we don't have Wi-Fi that works, or we don't have a residence hall that meets your needs, or we don't have a dining facility, or we don't have a rec center, all those things in the aggregate add to your experience as a student in the classroom. And so it all comes back to teaching, it all comes back to learning. But that happens, I would argue, outside the classroom very much as much as it does in the classroom.
Right.
So it was an emphasis, yes, and I know bricks and mortar aren't everything. You know, people inside the buildings are the ones that make the difference. But we had to provide places for our faculty and our staff to do their thing. And I'm proud of the fact that we've changed it, and I believe we've changed it for the better.
Definitely. It is a beautiful campus. I love Lancaster Avenue is my...
Yeah. So again, buildings designed by the Olmsted firm.
Yep.
I had the good fortune of being in the Coates building all my time here, and now to be in the library, and I love the library. The library is a beautiful facility and so functional and right in the heart of campus.
Definitely is. You just had to walk right over here. We were pretty much neighbors. But in your opinion, I know you did a lot of things, campus revitalization, securing private funding, amongst others, the list could go on. But what do you feel personally was your biggest accomplishment at the university while you were president? For me, Taylor, it comes back to students. You know, how have we improved the student experience? You know, how have I connected with students, whether it's through social media or at graduation, where I'll shake a hand and someone will say, "Hey, thank you for what you've done." They're thanking me, and that's nice. But really, I think more importantly, they're thanking the institution for what it's meant to them. So if we've improved the experience for you, and when I say you, I'm talking about everybody. I'm talking about the online students. I'm talking about our veteran students, many of whom I would meet for the first time the night before graduation when they came for our special ceremonies. So if we have improved that experience and made it better and made that degree, again, to harken back to a previous point, mean even more to you, that's what I'm most proud of. And we've done it, I believe, in an environment with kind of a paucity of resources. We haven't been flowing in cash, that's for sure, and we've faced some unique struggles at the state in terms of funding, but we've done it, and we've done it, I think, responsibly, and it's a better place. Good. It has definitely been a struggle with funding, so it's a rough time. But after you announced last month, was it that you were?
Yes,
Okay, that you were resigning. You began to work in the Department of Government, yes?
Well, I have an appointment in the Department of Government,
Okay.
but I've taught last semester in the Department of History, so
Oh, wow.
maybe I'm a kind of an orphan. I don't have anywhere where I fit.
Oh.
But I like to think that I can teach several different things. But my appointment's there, and I've taught there, and I've taught also in history.
Well, you are no orphan. You are an eternal colonel for always. So we are both that. What do you think during your time as president, if anything, if there was maybe anything you would have liked to have done differently, or maybe anything that you found to be different than what you expected?
That's a tough question because you can't ever go back and change the past.
Right.
But still, in all, the way we had to handle the cuts and the outsourcing, those were difficult times. I think we tried as best we could to get through it. At day's end, I know there's still people that are upset. They're probably mad at me. And look, that's just responsibility that comes with being the president. I understand that. But I certainly hope that we tried to get through those experiences with a modicum of empathy and showing that people do matter, and doing it with kind of sense of caring, because we are about people. And anytime I've had to make a decision that are really those gut-wrenching ones, inevitably 99% of the time they have to do with an individual.
Yeah.
Now, when I say an individual, it's an employee, but it's also a spouse, a partner, a brother, a sister, an aunt and uncle. And there's this whole kind of collection of individuals that are negatively impacted, and I certainly don't take that lightly. So if I've lost sleep, it's been over those decisions, and I hope we did them okay. But you always say, well, we could have done this better, we could have done that better, but we tried our best.
It's definitely a learning process, and
Yeah.
it is facing hard times with, funding for higher education. What do you hope to see for the future of not only higher education, because I know you focus a lot on this separately with, I believe, some of your books. What do you hope to see for the future of higher education and also EKU specifically?
Well, I certainly hope that with the session launching just a few days ago,
Right.
and legislators now trying to take the kind of big budget pie and to decide what priorities are, that higher education is not an afterthought. That public education, unlike everybody else, we've got to pay our teachers, we have to respect them, we have to appreciate what they do. But by the same token, higher education is it's so important in the state, yes, to the current students, but to the future generations, to the investment in infrastructure on every campus, and what it means to a state economy, and what it means to the kind of population writ large. So I hope that for higher education, there's support. There's not this thought of, well, we have to cut something, let's cut higher ed. They can always raise tuition, because tuition then turns into, in effect, a targeted tax
Right.
on a group of consumers where we all benefit from a more educated populace. So I know we can get sideways on that, and I can go on and on about that. But as it relates to your second part of the question, EKU, there's a funding formula. We've done very well, as you know, with the first two iterations. I would say we punch above our weight class, to use a boxing metaphor, but the competition's getting even more keen.
Yeah.
You look at what UK has done, you look at U of L in terms of investment in need-based financial aid in the infrastructure improvements. So we got to keep up. The university has to keep up, and we have to, I feel we have very good support from our community. I really appreciate that, because I know during that break, traffic was not bad. It was easy to get around town.
Definitely.
You know what I'm talking about.
You can tell when school's in session.
Yeah, exactly. So people here, I want to thank them for their support of the university, because it means so much in supporting our students, because they then go out in the public and support their businesses and shop in their stores and frequent their establishments. So it's a give and take, and higher ed is so vital. Taylor, you know what I'm talking about, but we've got to support it.
Definitely. It's what brought me and kept me here in Richmond. So it's just goes to show and back up what you're saying. But as in terms of you, what are kind of your next plans for Dr. Benson?
Well, as I said in my note to campus, I'm really excited about taking a kind of extended sabbatical, which I've never had. in my 19th year. Just finished my 19th
Wow.
my 19th year of being a university president. Excuse me,
That's
18th.
wild.
Yeah. So it's 3 different places, and it's been it's my kids don't know anything different. So this is a little bit different to see Dad in the morning and get them to ready for school, and
Yeah.
I have a different sort of schedule now. Office in the library. I want to thank my new librarian office mates. I had one come by yesterday. This is kind of funny. She said, we had this conversation. What do we call you? Do we call you President Benson? I said, well, I'm no longer the president, so that won't work. She goes, how about Dr. Benson? I said, look, I can't diagnose any illness, nor can I fix your teeth. So why don't you just call me Mike? And so you can call me whatever you want, but Mike is just fine. I love being in the library and working on this book. The book I'm focused on now is Daniel Coit Gilman, the first president of Johns Hopkins,
Okay.
and the establishment of the first research university in America.
That's
And
extensive.
the fact that was a template, it was a model that was put in place in Baltimore in 1876 and has been replicated by so many other universities since then. I don't think a full dress biography of Daniel Coit Gilman has been done, and I purport to do it. So I'm busy at work, and I'm really enjoying it.
Good. And correct me, is this second or third book that you?
So it'll be my third.
Okay.
Yeah. So the first was my dissertation, was turned into a book. Then Hal Boyd and I did our one last 2017, College for the Commonwealth.
Okay.
Then this will be, as this French say, my pièce de résistance.
Wow.
I hope this is it. It's Hopkins Press is a serious press, founded in 1878, and this has to be a high quality piece of work, and so I'm taking it very seriously.
Well, good. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I want to someday maybe write a book. Hopefully, I obtain the perseverance to do so. It's definitely different than writing a bunch of articles. But
Well, you're a very good writer, and writing is hard. I mean, it's one thing to go out and do, I call it the forensic work of going through archives and the books and the secondary and the primary sources, but then to discipline yourself to sit down and write. I've listened to a lot of writers on how they do it, whether it was Shelby Foote or David McCullough. David McCullough said a good day for him at this point in his life is 2 pages a day.
oh wow,
At his prime, he was doing 4 pages a day. Shelby Foote, he said 500 words a day was good because he did it with, if you could believe it, a dip pen.
wow.
He didn't use a word processor. So everybody has a different style. We're so fortunate now to have the technology that we do.
For sure.
But still, in all, writing takes work.
It definitely does. I can attest to that. Last question, very light note. Throughout your time at EKU, you, in my opinion, became a little bit notorious for your selfies that you take and your active social media presence. So was there ever really a point in the beginning that kind of, how did that just kind of start out or take off? I mean, I've always wanted one, and I'm planning to get one
All
today.
right, you got it. We will do it. Well, notorious, I'm not sure. I never intended it to be that
Right.
way. Mark Witt, who was in our communications office at the time.
He's awesome.
He is. He's a great friend, and a shout out to Mark if you're listening to this up at University of Kentucky now. But he came to me and said, you really need to be active on social media. And I had my own personal Facebook page, but I didn't have a Twitter account. I didn't have Instagram. I said, well, you got to coach me up. And Tom Martin, one of our faculty members, told me about Twitter. I didn't even know it was 140 characters, how you did the @ stuff and the underscore and all that. So the first one I did,
That surprises me.
No, I just was such a neophyte. And so I had a lot of people helping me. And then once we had a weather delay or cancel school, I used Twitter as the medium through which to communicate to students. And then it just kind of took off, and then the snow shoveling experience really kind of, that certainly got some attention. But I really like it because it's a way for me to, I hope, be accessible to students. I had a student librarian yesterday say, hey, are you President Benson? I said, yeah. She goes, I've only seen you on Twitter. This is the first time I've ever seen you. So we had a good chat. And if it makes me, again, feel like I'm just a normal person. I'm no, a president or doctor or whatever. That's just a title. Days in, it's how you and I treat each other.
Right.
And So I hope it's made me real, and I certainly try and use it in an effective way, and it's been fun. It really has.
It has. It is fun to always communicate with you on Twitter. But I appreciate you so much being here today. You'll always be an eternal Colonel. We both will. So thank you so much for your time. And then we will definitely get our selfie.
You got it. Thank you very much, Taylor. You do a great job.
Thank you.